A very big welcome, my sister Nerissa. I am so humbled to have you on this platform, on our humble platform, and to our viewers, our subscribers, and everybody watching. We love you and a big welcome to this conversation. It's more of a chat because she's my sister. She's a mom. She's everything. And I'll give you time to introduce yourself. My sister Nerissa, will you kindly introduce yourself? Who is Nerissa? And you know everything else that you want our viewers to know, please.
Thank you so much, Flo, for having me on this Dare. I'm sure it's way overdue. I'm so glad I managed to join you today. So, my name is Nerissa. Um, I'm a mom in my 40s. I'm also a wife, and I'm a lover of things mental health, personal care. Um, Reading, writing, those are the things that I'm very passionate. I'm also loving looking after myself and my kids intentionally. I have got 3 kids. The firstborn is turning 14 soon, and the second one is 11, and the third one is 9. The one who is 11, he has been diagnosed with autism, Tourette's syndrome, ADHD, anxiety, and learning difficulty. So, in a nutshell, that's who is Nerissa.
Thank you so much for that introduction because you touched all the things that we would like to talk about in this conversation today, in this video. You say it with so much grace, and which is, I think, what we need as a society, as an African society, because when people talk special needs, in fact, not so many people, I mean, now people are talking about it, but not so many people really want to have that conversation. And what made me really want to have you from the deepest bottom of my heart was the fact that from day one I got to know you. You were quite vocal, explicit about raising a child with special needs. You were so upfront about the diagnosis, and your love for wanting to share and educate fellow African parents, the community at large, really made me want to have you on this platform. And this is the one of the many conversations that we're going to be having, because I mean, I know we cannot condense all the information, all the things that we want to learn, because we learn every day. And learning about special needs, learning about autism, ADHD is it's a never-ending lesson as we evolve as a society. So thank you so much. And guys, to our viewers and everybody else watching this video, on this platform, we do love to talk about life abroad, life in the diaspora. And my sister Nerissa and her family, they also moved to the UK. Not so recently, but recently. She'll tell us, I know you moved in 2022, the same year that I moved to the UK as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure, really relocating. But we want to know what really inspired your move from Africa to the UK, my sister.
Thank you so much. Um, that's what technology does. It always the mute and mute always plays with our mind. So while I was muted, I had already started getting excited and boasting about where I come from. I come from Berengwa, Zimbabwe. So Tisu, we are those ones who talk the Shona that is got gwa, ja, all those very bold Shona vowels. So when I was born and bred in Berengwa. I only left Berengwa when I was going to Harare to college after A level. And I'd never thought that I would leave Zimbabwe. I looked at myself. I worked when I left college, I worked at ZESA. And at that time, it was one of those very good companies to work for, since it's a parastatal. And I really enjoyed being a Zimbabwean. I still enjoy being a Zimbabwean. It's one of my superpowers. So I never thought I would leave Zimbabwe until, as you grow up, you start seeing things changing. And now that you are working class, you actually feeling the weight of the economic changes that are happening in the country. So to cut the story short, I moved out of Zimbabwe in 2008 and went to South Africa, just like anybody else in search for greener pastures. And I stayed in South Africa from 2008 until 2022, end of 2022, in South Africa. That's where I met my husband and we got married, we had our wedding, and we had our 3 children. I was so settled. I never thought again I would leave South Africa or Africa. I was so comfortable. And I remember I had a high school friend who I first heard about the migration story from one of my high school friend who said, we're going to the mountain, we are praying. So the people that I'm praying for, we're actually praying for visas. That was towards the end of 2021. And I was like, oh, I really pray also that everything goes well. The friends that she was talking about, I didn't know them. I don't know them. But because she was my friend, whatever mattered to her really mattered. And we were those people would pray together, fast together, would agree in prayer. And I would just encourage her. For I think about 6 months, I would just say, I really wish you well. Your journey, when she was registering, she registered for the mock exam for IELTS. And because she said, I want to just see if how far I am with preparations. And I was praying with her. I remember even asking her the YouTube channels that she was following, encouraged her, went through those ones in just the desire to help her. It never crossed my mind that I need also to do this. Then one day, my husband came from work and I was chatting to one of my daughter-in-law. And she said, we were saying, people are leaving because she was based in Johannesburg. And she was saying to me, my Nini, do you know people are leaving like nobody's business? I say, yeah, I know people are really leaving. It's like every second day you will see people have moved. That's why I said, I really wish you well. I really wish you well. And I was praying for her. And I remember one day I was chatting to her and I was saying,
Are you doing a video? Oh, okay. So, Nerissa, as a mom, what really inspired you to move from Africa to the UK?
Interesting question. Interesting question. What inspired me to come to the United Kingdom to leave Africa was the need to get my son provision that can meet his needs. My son is on the autism spectrum, as I said earlier on, autism, ADHD, Tourette's syndrome, and learning difficulty. And after a lot of research and realizing that there is actually a place where the environment is conducive, where even the society is more aware of my child's needs, I knew that the support was going to be much more better. But I will not lie to you, Flo. Back in Africa, we had incredible support. We had incredible support. I don't regret anything in Africa. We had the most amazing people around us. We always had help whenever we needed help. I will give you an example of one incident when Chris eloped from the house just before it was, in the morning when you're preparing for school run, that rush hour. And my husband had left the house to fetch the other two kids to their school. He was going to start an hour later. And I assumed he had taken him because sometimes he would cry and say, I also want to go to Gracious and Miranda. So I thought he had taken him with to the sibling school. Yet he didn't take him. And also my husband thought he was still in the house and he was not in the house and he had eloped. That day, I remember I had a Toastmasters meeting and I was supposed to be the Toastmaster of the day that day. So I used to attend the Toastmasters meetings in the morning just after school run. And to excuse myself from that meeting was already, I can figure out now that Chris is not here and he's not with my husband on the way to the other sibling school. And I sent him a message to say, no, Chris is not with me. If he's not in the house, it means he has eloped. The support that we got that day, some of the Toastmasters members were even willing to contact the news, the journalists, to just make the word go out there that Chris was missing. That is just one of the examples. I can flag this podcast with so much examples of how much we got help when we were back in Africa, even the babysitting. We always had people who would say, please let me know if you need something. Please let me know if you need the support. And even the shops in the nearest mall that we were, they were now aware that we have a child with special needs. And what warmed my heart the most was people were keen to learn. Those who didn't understand autism were keen to learn. So to answer your question, I know I digressed a little bit, but to answer your question, what made us make a decision to come this side? We looked at the education system, we looked at things that are available, that are at the disposal for children or people living with special needs. And we realized that even job opportunities here in the United Kingdom, they have a better chance of getting employed, leading independent lives as adults. So that really ticked our box because we also looked at our life. We were comfortable, but we said to ourselves, at some point we'll need to retire and maybe go back home, leave South Africa. But then we looked at what we call home. My husband is Malawian. There is not so much information in Malawi about autism. I know that from the time we visited Malawi, all the time we go there, they will look at him and they start thinking maybe he was bewitched. The same thing when we go to Berekwa, my home village. People would look at him and think he is bewitched. The moment you start mentioning words like autism, ADHD, you are already making them confirm that he's bewitched because they don't even understand what you are saying. So we said at some point we will retire. We don't want Chris to be a burden to Gracious and Miranda, his siblings, as adults. We want him to at least be independent. If not even being independent, but we want him to be in a society that recognizes that these people are not half individuals. They are not less individuals. They are whole human beings. And if you look this side, where I work, we do work with some people who are we are on the spectrum. So for me, that gives me hope. That is what made us decide, hey, let's relocate.
Thank you so much for sharing that touching story. Like, I mean, honestly, it's just so amazing, and I think you define one of the. I know we always say, well, I'm relocating for my children, but I think for whoever that's going to hear this your story, you just fit into those people that actually sacrifice to say, I want to do this for my children. And not just the one child with special needs, but also you were so mindful of his siblings to say, we don't want him to be a burden to his siblings. And then
Yes.
so you you were like very particular about what you were looking at when you were relocating. We want to give him an education. We want to give him
Yeah.
equal opportunities. And I think this is just so amazing. And obviously we'll get into it to where we're going to be talking about the experiences so far, because I
Yeah.
know and appreciate that it's been quite a few years that we've been in the country. But I've got a question before we go into that. And that question, because a lot of people, when I was doing research to this conversation we are having, there were a lot of questions that were coming through. Because I talk about relocation, I'm always giving hope as far as relocation is concerned. And I'm always saying sometimes it's not just about the money, but there are other benefits. So you
Yeah.
fit the criteria, because we are talking about relocating for family. So there's this one question that I think it's fair that I ask to say, what were your biggest concerns when you were planning the relocation, especially regarding your child's needs? Did you have any concerns whatsoever? Because I know for every mother, I mean, we are African, we are Black. And to
Mm.
add on top of that, we were bringing a child with special needs. Were you any concerned, or share with us, please?
Was I were we concerned? I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to go back to the memory lane. I think we were excited once we made a decision uh, to relocate. I don't know if I must go back to where we were talking about how I ended up making a decision to come back, or that will come back again as a question. I don't want to. If you want, before we had the technical glitch, there's somewhere where I was,
If
but
it helps with the
and
question, you can go back. It's all right.
the question was, what was?
Your biggest concerns when you were planning relocation, especially regarding your child's needs.
Okay, so the biggest concern was how soon. I remember we were told when we were now researching after we made a decision that I think let's take this route. Let's also migrate. Our biggest concern was how soon is he going to get the medical attention, number one. And because he is on controlled drugs, we were wondering, are we going to be able to be allowed to travel with them? And what is the implications if we are caught with those his medication? And the other thing was we were told that it can take 2-3 months to get registered and to access medical attention. So those were the things that we were thinking. So what is going to happen to him when if we don't get in Africa? They didn't want, because it's also a controlled drug, they did not want to release quite a lot of it. So it's unlike the other medications. I had other people who are weird with other ailments were saying, I told my doctor that I'm traveling, so I got like 6 months supply. But with his medication, they the doctors even said we are not allowed to release more than 1 month supply. So those were some of the concerns that we had, and it really got us worried to say, does it mean he's going to stay at some point without medication? And also, people on the spectrum floor, they struggle with change. They really struggle. If I tell you that he hasn't settled, he still has conversations as if we are still in South Africa. So we think we are all settled by him. There are some things that are surfacing now that can tell you that he is still settling. So they take time to accept change, and they take time to cope with change. So we were very much concerned. We knew we were doing this for him, but we were concerned about how he is going to adjust to change of environment. And for a very long time, I think for about 6 months to even 1 year, he kept saying, when are we going home? When are we going home? What really made him feel, oh, okay, it looks like we're not going back home, was when we moved into our own place. Because when we came, we had a very good friend who took us in, stayed with us for a month while we were looking for our own accommodation. So when we were there, he kept asking, when are we going home? When are we going home? Because to him, home was back in Africa. And we thought when we moved to the new house, when we were searching for the house, we thought we are looking for a way to go back to Africa. So you
Wow.
can see those were the concerns that we have: the settling, the medication, and how soon he was going to get access to medical services.
Honestly, I'm learning a lot, and sometimes we just assume everybody that relocated. I know a lot of people think, oh, they've got it easy, their life is sorted because they relocated, and I'm actually realizing that there is actually more that we could do to really support each other as the diaspora community. And I think that's a conversation for another day. But you're just making me think even about our community at large, to say, are we doing enough for each other? But that's a conversation for another day, because if we start, we won't stop. But then I think you've actually led me to what was going to be my next question, where you touched on researching on the UK healthcare system, the education system for children with special needs, and the preparation. Therefore, I know you talked about the healthcare part where you were concerned about medication and stuff. Were you any concerned about the education system? And also, I want you, maybe if you can, to maybe share with us how you prepared for both the medication part and the education part as well, just in brief.
So the medication part, we ended up talking to, when we collected our visas, we spoke to the staff members at the British consulate office where we collected our visas, and we told them that this was our concern. We had already mentioned in our application. So what we do as a family, we always make sure that wherever we go, wherever we are getting services provided, we make it very clear from onset, maybe by the doorstep. We'll just let people know that we have a family member who is on the autism spectrum, because we don't want people to be shocked. So we had made it clear throughout the application that we have a family member who has got special needs. And when we went to collect our visas, we wanted to find out how much they can help us so that we get enough medication. And also they were okay with, let me just pause this. Flo, I need to take this. It has got something to do with my son's awards. Let me mute. Mark the other day. Yeah. So we did let know the consulate where we were collecting the visas that Chris is on this diagnosis, as we have seen even from our application, and we are concerned with it. By the time we go to the UK, the settling and everything, it might take time to register. Flo, we were very fortunate that that very day, there was also in the building one of the psychiatrists who also works with Christopher, where he was collecting his medication in Cape Town. And they said, no, if that is the case, you just come with your visas to us and you tell us we are traveling. We already know that when you are traveling, you need not only a month's supply of medication. So we understand. There is no way we will say, no, we only give you a month's supply. But if we know that you have visas and these visas are showing that you're definitely going, you bring your visas, you bring your flight tickets, we'll write medication. So when we were in the consulate collecting our visas, we also aired our concerns, since there were already people who were understanding our situation with one of our children on the spectrum. We told them we're concerned about the medication supply, since we're not going to get anything until we are settled. We understood that it can take 2-3 months or even more to get settled when you have an address and then register for the GP and then start getting medication. But while we were there, as I was explaining, then one of the colleagues got to know some doctors, the GPs, that they said, no, we just need to talk to them. Which hospital have you been collecting medication? And we told them the hospital that we were collecting medication in Cape Town. They said, no, we need to tell them that as long as your flight tickets and your visas that show that you are really traveling to that place, you are eligible to get the supply that is more than 30 days. And they referred us to those people, and we went and we got the medication that sustained us until we were settled and we're in the system in the UK. And then to answer your question about the education, we were also concerned that what we did on our part to make sure that there's smooth sailing. When we came here, I'm the COS holder, and my husband is a dependent. So we agreed that when we came here, we saved quite a few dollars, and we were prepared that he can stay warm even for a year. Why? Because we knew that getting a school for Christoph was going to take longer. Even back in Africa, he was on a waiting list to get into a special needs school for quite a while. So we knew very well that even coming to Europe, special needs school, they do take time for him to get a place. So when we came here, we budgeted that I would maybe work even for a year if it means that while he's staying with Chris at home. But then when we applied for schools, when we came here, we applied for schools. The other two siblings, they found their places in school and they started going to school. And we were informed by the county council that even the special needs child needs to apply. So we applied and they got a place in a local school because they don't use the diagnosis that you bring from Africa when it comes to special needs children. The only diagnosis is for the other conditions. But when it comes to special needs children, they want to observe those children in the school setting, especially considering that you can have autistic children in the schools that other children are going. So they want to see the level, the severity of the condition, if it cannot be attended to in a school setting. So he found a place there and started going. Then they realized that his condition, he would not sit in a classroom. That's when they then said you can stay at home as you wait to go into a special needs school. So we were concerned, but we were not more concerned for education than we were for medication. Because with education, we were prepared and we thought it was something within our control. We can keep him warm. But with medication, we needed intervention and we got the help. We just need to speak. Help is available.
Wow, thank you so much, Nerissa, for all the things that you've shared. As you were sharing, honestly, there are things that came to mind. There are things already that I've learned and that I'm learning, and I want to share with our viewers here. There's one thing that I picked. A lot of people, through my interactions with a lot of people, I do talk to a lot of people. A lot of people do share their stories and concerns in my DMs, on my socials, through emails. People are consistently asking questions. There's one thing that stood out, and I am here to commend you and as a family. You guys are always upfront when it comes to the condition that Chris has. You're always truthful. You're always letting people know. What I realized through interacting with a lot of people do keep things to themselves. Even people are not as truthful when it comes to declaring conditions, which may later on impact even on the help that they were meant to get, impact even on future access to certain things. Because I mean, you haven't been upfront to say, I've got this condition, and then you're thrown maybe in a job or in a situation that you know pretty well, my condition does not allow me to thrive. What else do you expect? And sometimes we do cry foul when we don't get the sympathy or the lenience that we should have been getting because we shy away. So I do hope that a lot of people, through watching this video, will learn to say, maybe in the first world, or maybe times have evolved and people are more acceptive of conditions. People put in place help for people when you say out. I cannot put a limit to say they understand to this extent, but already I'm seeing a bit of this. There are people always there to help. There's also one thing I picked as well when you were talking about the education system and how, at the forefront of things, they said no child is supposed to be at home in this country. It's one of the things
Yes.
that most people do not look at. I've heard people say, well, we were not prepared. We thought, well, people bring children over and they say, well, I was just hoping they would be at home for a month, and not in this country. It's something that I picked to say, even with their special needs, the council advised you to say, we want that child in school. We
Yeah.
want to assess them. So sometimes we put barriers, and I've just learned to say, knock on every door and you get all the information that you need. And I
Yes.
think this brings us to maybe the next question that I have for you. Just briefly, did you face any challenges related to visas when you declared that he had this condition? Because a lot of people are scared to say, I cannot relocate, I've got this condition, or my child has got this condition. Did you Were you asked? Because I know the visa consulate, the visa offices always ask for additional information when you declare certain things. Did you face any challenges regarding his visa, or it was just a smooth sail?
No, what we did when we were applying is we just submitted all the documents that would back up what we had said in the application. So before they even asked, they did not ask us. We submitted the application, and the additional information was just, the school reports and all that. That's all they wanted. In terms of the diagnosis or anything, we had already submitted the doctor's reports, the health reports that we had already submitted. So they did not ask. So I can say whatever queries they had for all the three children, not particularly for the child who is with special needs.
Thank you so much, Nerissa, for answering that question, because a lot of people do come to me again asking, and sometimes I don't have answers to all those questions. And so you have actually shed more light to say, if you are ever thinking you want to relocate in the future, evidence is always key. Whatever that we are doing, whatever lifestyle we are living, it's something that I also learned when I came here to say they can ask for the slightest of things. And I know
Yeah.
we've been in the country for quite a few years now, and we're building towards applying for our indefinite leave to remain. Evidence and documentation is very, very key. Submitting
Yes.
accurate information, accurate,
Mm.
truthful documentation is very, very key going forward. So thank you so much for bringing light into that. This brings us to one of the questions that I do have to say. I know you've got your visa, you have been on those flights, and you're here in the UK. What was your first impression of the support system available for children with special needs? Because a lot of people do ask. We can only know about this information through asking. And because you're living that life, because you're in that situation, what was your first thought about the support system for Chris, for you as a family, with a family member who has got special needs? What was your first take?
Wow, you have just taken me back to the very day that my family arrived. I arrived into the UK a week before my family followed. So the day they arrived, I went to fetch them at the airport. And while we were there, when your family arrived, you're so excited, and we're busy checking the luggage, and I was showing them around the airport as the one now who is 7 days familiar more than them. And we grabbed some sandwiches and sat down just for them to take a breather before we went into our text that I brought. And while we were doing that, taking photos, you know what we do there at the airport? Chris eloped. Chris eloped, and you know how busy the airport is. We could not, we didn't realize we've lost him. After like maybe 5 minutes, that's when we realized, no, we are short here. Where is the other child? And when we started looking around, we reached out to the security guards, and we told them, we have our son, Christopher. Fortunately, we had photos that we had taken, like recent photos of what he's already wearing. Then we showed him those photos, and they quickly went to the CCTV room, looked into the CCTV. Christopher was already like a mile away. He was outside of the airport already. But the help that we got, he was in the parking lot, but we got so much help, like in an instant flow. In an instant, they already had figured out where he was from the CCTV cameras, and also the people where he was. They already had started alerting the police, and help was just available in an instant. We panicked, we were a little bit disturbed, but we were happy that the support was so instant, and we got the support. Then we went home, settled, started going to the shops to get where to get some supplies, some groceries. Even in the shop, you don't get those stares that you get, and you don't have to explain quite a lot to tell people, Flo, that he's autistic. It's so comforting when you go into a public place and people just know that he's autistic. Oh, he has got ADHD. Oh, bless you. You go to the park, people who understand, even the kids that are there, they've got this awareness. They already know, oh, is he autistic? Oh, does he have ADHD? That is so comforting. You feel so relaxed, and you don't have to over explain his behavior in public places. We started looking for accommodation. I can say he gave us an added advantage actually. There are some places where we went and would sit in the queue when he start losing his team and like not having enough of that place, would get the attention. We still get the service because people can realize, no, we don't have to keep this boy here longer. Let's attend to these ones. I've received help here in the shops where I will be asked, oh, you can go pay first so that he doesn't get agitated. So I can say, in terms of being received in schools, the fact that he was given an opportunity to be in a school where every child goes, and then they realize they cannot meet his needs, even though it was a school where they don't meet the needs for the special needs children, but you could see the effort that was being put every time. He went there, I think, for 2 weeks. Every time I would go there, I would meet the principal. They talk to me. You can see they are concerned, and they are the ones that even escalated, made sure the county council is aware that they cannot meet the needs and all that. Then, in terms of looking for accommodation, again, you realize that his diagnosis is actually making things easier for us. It's like it gives you an added advantage. I remember when we were viewing houses, we viewed almost 10 houses. And every time we would go and view the houses, and we would mention, we never wanted our landlord to end up thinking that we are hiding from them. We wanted them to know from day one that if they are to take us, they're taking a family with a special need family member. And the landlord who chose us also has got a child with special needs, because they were like, I know your chances of getting made from other landlords might be slimmer, but I also have got a child just as yours. So I know exactly what you're going through. So I think it has given us the limelight. It's a privilege. I would say if you don't have a special needs child, you are missing out.
I know we are missing out, and already you nearly made me like cry. I was just like all in tears and getting all emotional when you were explaining all the things that you go through with Chris. He's an adventurous, happy boy. He's as interested in everything as we all are. He's
Yeah.
just specially gifted. That's who he
Yeah.
is. That's Chris.
Mm.
And thank you for being such a special family, for being such a special set of parents, because I mean, it takes a special gift to really raise a child with special
Yeah.
needs. No wonder why they are called special needs. It's for special people,
Yes.
it's for special families. I do have a question for you, because you mentioned that Chris, well, it's probably nearly standard procedure that the education system need to diagnose for itself, because like you said, like you keep mentioning, because I did a bit of research, I also have got friends and family with children who are autistic, to say it's a spectrum, which means it's not a rigid thing. You can
Yeah.
be on the other end, or on the other end, or in between. So that's what it
Yeah.
is. No wonder why they do their own assessment. They cannot just take a comprehensive report from where you're coming from. So now Chris has been referred to the other school. My question for you is, did you face any challenges, or what challenges did you face navigating the UK special education system? Because it's like you were taken back to say, of course, we know he's been going to school, he's been diagnosed, but we want to start all over again with him.
Yeah.
What are the challenges, or what were the challenges with that for you as a family, and for him as well, if you are comfortable sharing?
Did you have to ask that?
I
Okay.
know. I know. It's like you know your child, and then someone comes up and then they tell you, like, no, you're
Flo.
gonna know him.
Oof. Flo, that question takes me down to, I think we came in January 2023. And I think the whole of 2023, whenever I would receive calls, it would be social workers introducing themselves, the GP, the LD comes, the learning difficulty department, um, the pediatrician, the teachers, and everyone would be like, "Hi, Nerissa. My name is Linda. I'm calling. I would love to get to know the family. Can you please tell me, when was Christopher born? When was he diagnosed? What was the red flags for you to get him diagnosed? And what have you been taking? What medication has he been? What time does Christopher wake up? What time does Christopher go to bed? What kind of food does he do? Is he verbal? Is he potty trained?" So these questions, I ended up, every time I would see the landline, the UK landline, I would just know that these are the questions that, whether I'm getting that from the Department of Health, Department of Education, or Department of um, Autism, I would just know the list of questions. And I remember the other day saying to my husband, "But why don't they just share information? Why do they keep asking me?" Everyone who is assigned to work with us as a family will start asking me, uh, "How long was the gestation period? And how many weeks did you give Christopher? Did you give birth to him normal? Did you give birth to him via cesarean section?" So the questions were so overwhelming. But when I look back now, I see that it was worth it. It was exhausting, Flo. I don't want to lie to you. You end up thinking, "Oh, okay, I must just make sure I'm saying the same answers." Sometimes when we ask you, how many weeks of gestation did you give birth to your first child? Or was it
Yeah.
the birth? And you say yes, and we say, how many centimeters? How many hours did you stay in labor? That kind of information that you start thinking, do I really remember those kind of things? So those are the challenges for me. The desire to give, or the expectation to provide those intricate details, the expectations to know what time does Chris go to bed, roughly. How does his graph of sleeping routine? Does he sleep at the same time every day? Does he eat same foods every day? Does he do this? And having to tell 18 different professionals. whom you know they are recording that to be able to use for your child's uh, it was something else.
I can imagine how old that was. And well, I'll just put to you this question to say that transition from that the big school into the school that he is now, were there any challenges that you faced, or everything was just smooth and it would be a case of, okay, he's starting and you're giving details and everything on the background of all these phone calls? Did you have any challenges now with the transition from big school to the school where he is now?
The challenge was the waiting period. It was the waiting period. He only went into school 2024 September. So we can say after 18 months of getting into the country, after a waiting period of 18 months. But I will not call it a challenge, because I know so many parents out there who have been here longer than us, and some who are citizens of this country, who are born and bred, who are born in this country, who are still fighting for their children to get into the special needs education system. So I will
I
not
know,
say it was,
yeah.
yeah. So excuse me. So I will not call it a struggle, but I can see some favor there, if I call it that way. We were privileged and we are grateful that the process was that quick. It can actually take longer. I know some people who are still fighting or waiting for their children to get into the special needs educational system.
And I think it's just to bring light into that. I think it goes into, like you were telling us about all those phone calls, the thoroughness into that goes into those referrals. Because I think one of the things, because I know I now work in a government department. I work for the NHS, and I've seen certain things that probably a lot of people may not be privileged to. I'm not going into details, but that may delay certain things.
Yeah.
It's the thoroughness to say we don't want to end up putting somebody in the wrong place because it is for long
Yes.
effects, or we don't
Yes.
want to end up delaying or missing certain things that could help in where we're going to refer someone to. So I do
Yes.
appreciate all the hard work, and I know you mentioned to say they would, each and everyone would phone and ask nearly the same questions, but it's for them to make their own independent judgment to say, I spoke to the mother, I spoke to the family. These are the questions, these the evidence to say, I spoke to this family. Not to say, because sometimes one question could be asked to us, but in a different way, and we could get a different answer altogether. So I applaud them for doing their job in a thorough manner, regardless of you being an immigrant, regardless of the fact that you were
Yes.
new in the country. They still did their job to the best of their ability. They still
Yes.
left
Thank
no
you.
stone unturned. So again,
Yes.
I'm learning a lot to say sometimes when we are being asked questions, sometimes because I know we will get to that point where a lot of questions will be asked to us, a lot of information will be required to us. It's always important to be very truthful, because that will bring about the support that you need sometimes. So it's something that we are learning, and I think it
And
brings me to,
also, Flo, just to interject there, the other
yes.
thing that somebody told me that you also have to follow up. Don't wait to be the one receiving the calls. You also have to follow up. You have to chase them. If you see people calling you, getting information, also after a couple of days, call them and say, "You called me, and I gave you this information. I just want to find out if you need any more information. I just want to find out if you need any more." That will also make them realize that this one is actually waiting for feedback from us. Because I told myself they cannot be calling me, spend 28 minutes, this one 30 minutes, this one 14 minutes, and then just collect data from me. I have also a role to play and to push from my end to say, I remember I gave you this information. I just want to find out if there's any progress or if there's any more information I That would hint them. I remember the other time we went for a tribunal floor, and they knew that this family have been also calling as much as we have been calling them. And I remember the lawyer that they had assigned to show that our family qualifies to get that special needs school. They even said this family, they really want the child in school. So yes, you can wait, you can be on the waiting list, but sure that you are also waiting, pushing.
Honestly, in this conversation, there are things that are coming up that I wasn't ready for. That and all the more reasons why I think we will be having more of these conversations and
Yeah,
sharing with our viewers.
yeah.
And guys, if you're watching, Nerissa has got a platform. I'll put the links. She's got a YouTube channel. She's on TikTok. She's on Facebook. She's everywhere. She's on Instagram. So you can actually subscribe and follow her for all the information. You could be somebody who has got a family member with special needs. It's worth it. That information is worth it. She shares the information in English and in Shona as well. So if you just reach out to her. And also I appreciate the fact that you take the time to really give information about autism itself, not just talking about your story, not just talking about your son, but autism itself and making people understand. So guys, do follow her, do subscribe to your channel. Nerissa, I'm going to ask you another question as well that I'm sure our viewers would be interested in knowing, because today is about the special boy. So, Nerissa, how has your child adapted well to the new environment, and were there any unexpected difficulties? I know you've shared a few times when he first came, and then, as usual, he gave you a run for your money. But has he adjusted now, and have you faced any other challenges with Chris in terms of adjusting in school and the general environment as well?
Yeah, Christopher is settled, but instead of he's settling. Okay, Christopher is settled, and but is the condition is the one that determines how he responds or reacts to environment. Some days are better than others. There are days when you wake up and miss his South African teachers, his South African peers. But one of the unexpected difficulties on Chris' adaptation when we relocated was he got constipated. He's a person who drinks quite a lot of water. I know it's more than a liter a day. But when he came, I think for close to a week, we actually thought he's going to the bathroom and relieving himself, but he was not going at all until we realized that he was constipated and we had to get some supplements to ease that. So that was the very unexpected complication that we had when he migrated. And also the fact that the time zone, it really disrupted his sleeping routine. That was the other challenge. And getting used to the food this side. Fortunately, we had brought quite a lot of food from uh, Africa, but we realized that he was very reluctant to start eating food that is this side. His taste buds took quite a long to adjust to even the cereals. You would get the cornflakes here, you would not want them. You would still want the cornflakes from Africa. So simple things like that, even water. In as much as we were drinking water, but he didn't like the. So those are the major unexpected difficulties that Chris got when we relocated.
And I know it's the little things that sometimes we overlook. Sometimes we just go like, if you really think food is important, but it is when
Mm.
you have what they're called special needs for a special reason. So I'm learning as well to pay attention to detail, even to the tiny nitty-gritties, they can actually affect a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
I think we're coming to a conclusion to this very interesting journey that you've shared about raising, relocating with a child with special needs. I mean, this conversation can go for days, Nerissa, and I'm so privileged. And I know we're going to have as many conversations to come, because it doesn't end to us getting an insight into this story, because I know your son has written a book which is inspired by being a sibling to a special brother. So it's something that we would love to talk about on this platform. It's something that we would love to share with the family, and also we would love to hear other family members and their take on things, because I know your mother plays a very important role, but when you've got a special family member, everybody has got a role to play, and it's
Yeah.
also befitting that we equally hear from them, we equally hear their experiences and how they're supporting the family. So I'm so much honored. But Nerissa, I've got one question for you before we go. So if to our listeners, how can our listeners, the community at large, support a family like yours? And also, again, in that final wrap up, can you share your final thoughts for other parents navigating a similar path? They're relocating with a child with special needs. What is your message to them? They're thinking we want to relocate, but they've got a special family member. What are your thoughts and your words to them as we conclude, love?
Oh, thank you so much. So, to my very favorite group of the society, special needs families, just make sure that you communicate your needs. Ask for help as much as possible. Help is available. What I've learned is that you have to let people know you are not a superhuman. In as much as you can do everything by yourself, but look for help, ask for help. People are available to help. And also talk about what is going on in your life to those loved ones, the neighbors. Introduce yourself. I know people say life in the UK, there's no social life, but penetrate those social circles. Make friends for yourself, so that when you need help, there's some numbers in your phone book that you can dial and you can get the help. Do not be the person that only look for help when you are really desperate. Reach out to people and also support them on their causes, so that when in turn you need support, it's easier for you to call them, and it's easier also for them to just turn up for you. Then to the society, let's just be more kind to each other. You see, conditions like autism, you cannot tell by just looking at a person that somebody is autistic. And also, you can be in a shop, or you can be at a workplace working with a person or a colleague like me. You will not look at me and see that this one is a mother to an autistic child. Maybe I've just had a difficult night, or maybe when you think I was off, I was busy with hospital appointments. Maybe when you think, oh, she's just coming from off, so we expect you to be so energized and all that, just be a little bit kind. You don't know the person that you are dealing with, what they have to deal with at work. That is my challenge to you. Whether you know what people are going through or you don't know, just be kind.
Oh, that's the sweetest message I've had today. Message of kindness, message of being a support system to the next person, being thoughtful and mindful. Nerissa, thank you so much for joining us. And we are going to bring Nerissa in future videos where we're going to be talking about autism, special needs, and the family setup in the UK. There's so many things that we would love to share with our viewers, and you are a valuable source of information for our platform. Guys, thank you so much. And if you have been watching this video and you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. And guys, go and subscribe to Nerissa's channel. Go and follow her on all your socials. The links are in the description, and let's learn together and let's be kind. Nerissa, thank you so much. We love you. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you.